Coming up on Mountain Hermeneutics, last weekend, Russel Brand was baptized to Christianity. And it seems like a lot of people on alternative media had plenty to say about it, whether it be non-Christians poo-pooing the idea, and even Christians kind of being skeptical of it.
Like
Is
Brian.
it sincere? I don't know. We'll talk about it though, so keep it right here. You're listening to Mount Hermeneutics, where three Marines give their perspective on God, faith, and spirituality with a heavy lean on the divine council worldview. This is not your grandma's Sunday school, nor is it always for the Christian faint of heart. Nothing about who we are or what we say make us experts. But you better believe we'll have a take, and perhaps it won't suck. So if you listened to the show last week and you thought Brian was a bumbling idiot, now you know why. Now you know.
I kind of feel like that's fair. Like I kind of was a bumbling idiot. You gotta cut that part.
Why?
We're gonna get canceled. It's just that I don't want to be like Kanye or trying to grow our podcast, man. That's not. It's the opposite of what we want to do.
Fellas, what's happening?
Great. What's going on, man?
What's going on? How was your
Yeah,
weekend?
so it's a good weekend. Like nice and how you say uneventful, which is pretty good. So I like that. We did some more storage stuff, so it looks like I'll be able to clean my garage, and probably in the coming weeks I will have a new studio. Where
Oh
I'll
yeah.
have, yeah. So it'll be
Nice.
it'll be fun. That's what we're
Nice.
working toward.
You
Um, spent
trying to
some
have it,
time
you're
with
trying to build the Dre cave, huh?
the Dre Cave. That's right, and with everybody needs a Dre Day, and spent some time with the baby granddaughter. She's almost 11 months, and at 10 months she started walking. So she's just, big and smart and funny and sings songs. Imagine that. I have a granddaughter that sings.
Here's my shocked
That's
face.
yeah, yeah, right. And also, the 3-year-old she has her 4-year-old birthday next month, so she's also a hoot. She has a she's almost like not a real person, like a sitcom human, right? Like with catchphages.
Like
She
So
an
comes
her
Olsen
in and
twin.
says like pre-canned lines.
yeah, her new one is I wasn't born yesterday.
She's like
I'm
an
like,
Olsen twin or a
well, point of fact, you
or
were pretty much born yesterday, but so so that's fun. That's what's going on with me. Not very much, but yeah, just me being a grandfather, and also my birthdays as of this will be next week. Uh, and I will not quite be 50, but I'm getting there.
Knocking on heaven's door,
That's right.
I don't
huh?
I don't think we should tell the general public that
that I'm 50-ish.
because they know we're all like the same age. So
Yeah, but
Brian just does like this so close to home for him.
it's funny you say that because the other day Delani was talking about her husband at her new job. She's like, yeah, he's 46, 45.
She always
It's,
throws you in the other direction.
and I'm like, you
wait,
do realize that I'm not 45, right? She's like,
wait, that
shut up, you are. Because if you're not, that means I'm not. And then so shut your
I
45.
thought you just said something about what Delani said about her husband at
She
work.
was talking about her husband at work, meaning talking about Dre.
Talk about me. I'm her
Oh,
husband.
He was kind of doing a third person thing.
okay. That
Yeah.
made you may okay.
So she's
That's
mentioning her husband
that
and claiming that he is not as old as he really is.
that's a lot better than what I heard.
Yeah,
And
she's got a work husband. Like I mean, the polygamist is going backwards here in the Mormon community here in Southern California.
Hey, it's 2024.
Yeah, right. I
sorry I
mean, if
brought
she
it
was
up.
Oprah,
Sorry.
that'd be good, but yeah, because Oprah's rich, and I'd be like, what? I'm side piece, whatever. Right. So yeah, so what's going on, Brian? What's up, man?
What's going on with me? Not a lot. I went for a walk in the woods and
See
I
any
got
bears?
scared. I got scared for a second because I was like, what if I run into a bear or or
But
a
you wouldn't be scared because you're a man.
or a
So
woman?
nah. After the bear spent time with woman, he's like, God, thank God you're here. She wouldn't shut the
Thing is, I think that's less a function of what you think about men or bears, and more a function of where those woods are. Like if you're in
Are they the woods in the backyard of like of a housing addition, or are you in like northern Wyoming?
yeah, if you're in some like lawless land, I would be afraid to encounter a man alone in the woods. Um,
More
If
than a
I'm alone in
bear?
the woods, I'm probably armed.
Right.
well,
So
But more than
yeah,
a bear?
well, a bear, you kind of know what the bear's going to do if
Yeah,
you
eat
shoot
you.
it, and
I've
you
seen The
can,
Revenant.
yeah, sure. I could, frankly, I could take a bear with my bare hands, but
hmm.
but a man, you don't know what his intentions are. He could be armed, and then you've got
And
this
he could lie to you, right? He'd be like befriend you, like, "Hey, dude,
yeah, and
can you help me
then
make this fire, dude? I don't know what I'm doing. Thank God you're here."
he could steal your picnic basket and whatever else he's into, and you've got this moral dilemma. Like you don't know what to, do you shoot him before he shoots
Always.
you,
Yes.
or
Always.
so? But with
There's
a
no moral
That's
bear,
not a
dilemma.
moral dilemma. That's what I do.
It's a marksmanship question. That's all that is.
well,
It
with
depends on what weapon you have too. The marksmanship
I,
at what
like,
range.
I
none of this makes
personally,
any sense. First of all, I don't believe anything you said, because
me,
why would you have a picnic basket in the forest?
I
Who are
was
you,
just
Little
it
Red
was
Riding Hood?
it's a
He's hanging out
metaphor.
with
It's a
because
because
Yogi's gonna come up.
because
Yogi's
bears
actually the bear.
because
His
So
his
bears
picnic basket.
because
what picnic
bears steal
basket?
picnic baskets, and so do men.
Hey, boo boo.
But
Give me
like
one picnic basket.
I would feel bad just shooting a guy like preemptively, unless I knew he had bad intentions. And like I would do it, but it would haunt me. I'd be like, what if that was an innocent guy who just wanted to, share his
This is the
picnic
same
basket?
person that said like the Japanese deserved being bombed.
I didn't
And you're telling
say
me you have a
that.
problem shooting a guy that you think might be trying to attack you? Like,
I didn't say that exactly. It was a bit more nuanced than that.
I felt like it was less nuanced.
Yeah. So anyway, how are you doing, Matt? What was your weekend like?
um well, it was, so today's Cinco de Mayo, for the
Mm.
listeners when they finally hear the show. So I had double Cinco de Mayo parties last night. So kind of had to run around. I was all around town. Um,
So
Travis, I was
you
at
def
Travis Johnson's house for the first Cinco de Mayo party. So shout out Travis.
so you
And then,
defiled the sanctity of May the 4th.
yep, absolutely. And
Okay.
then I ended my night with Lisa and Juan. So shout out to Juan Acevedo. Thanks for the party, Juanito. Had a good
These
time.
are all people I've met.
Right?
How
That's why I
exciting is
was
this?
that's why I was bringing it up. It's like part of the podcast. It's part of the Mount Hermeneutics family. And so yeah, I had a good day yesterday. It was a good day. I didn't have to use my AK. So yeah,
Didn't have to kill a man in anger.
nope.
It's too bad the Supersonics are in that song
Right.
and they no longer exist.
So quick sports fact I saw yesterday. I
Hmm.
saw this morning. For the month of May, or the month of April, despite the fact that he didn't play a single playoff game, Victor Wembanyama has the most blocks for the month of April. I found that cute. His last game was April 12th.
I was just thinking about that actually.
I bet you were.
Just-
That's why I wanted to let you know.
Thank you.
he's not a bad little young
He's not
ball
lousy.
player.
He is not lousy.
And this is only the beginning.
Yep.
Also, because the Planet of the Apes movie is coming out on the 12th.
Yeah.
I made Delani watch the first two, and
I
she's
think
like,
I
"I'm
need
not."
to watch him. I haven't
She's like, "I'm
watched him.
not watching that." I'm like, "You are watching it. If you love me, I totally emotionally blackmailed her
Oh,
into
wow.
watching it because I'm like, you're watching because I'm going to the movie, and since you're my date, I'm not answering questions, okay? So you come to the movie just like we did Dune. I mean, you had to watch
Mhm.
Dune. You had
Yeah.
to watch Dune. And we're gonna go watch Dune.
So
We did the same thing with the Equalizer. Equalizer 3 came out, and I'm like, we're watching these two flicks before
so
we go see.
similarly, Carrie offered this early afternoon. She goes, "Do I need to watch the other Mad Maxes to understand the new Mad Max that's coming out?" And I was like, "That's a great question, and I don't know the answer." I was like, "I have no idea what what the movie's gonna be about." I said, "It wouldn't hurt to watch them." I said,
Right.
"At least one or two of the originals would be good, just for general principle." But
The original trilogy is great. I
yeah,
rewatched those
It's pretty good stuff.
when I got my own Pursuit special last year. It had me on Mad Max kind of mood. And they're actually, I remember like, I felt like I watched those because they were on HBO like every 5 minutes when I was a kid.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
felt like I'd seen them, but I never
They
really
were on
like,
all the time.
they
yeah,
were. Yeah,
I never really like watched them and like ingested like what it was about. It's actually quite a profound statement on
I kept
like,
turning them off because they were all jittery because of that weird shutter speed they used. Like it all like looks different. It has like a weird effect to it, and I would just turn the channel. I was like, why is everything so
okay.
fast?
As I was saying, like there's kind of a profound message there about like masculinity and femininity and their respective contributions to civilization and what happens when masculinity is advocated and that kind of thing. It's worth it's worth reviewing.
See that?
it's worth an exploration.
Yeah.
So before we get into our real content, if you go ahead, ever be so kind and smash that like button and subscribe and share the show with your friends. You can find us at Mount Hermeneutics. It's on all the places that you get your podcasts, whether it be Spotify or Apple Podcasts or iHearts or even Audible. And if you're looking at my face right now, then it's probably on YouTube. So go ahead and subscribe and share with all your friends.
It's a damn good show.
It's a damn good show. I mean, it's what it is.
And hit the bell.
Yeah,
Right,
so
hit the bell.
so you're notified every time
Yeah,
that we have new
subscribe
content.
for us because the subscriptions help our analytics. And it's funny because I watch a lot of shows on YouTube and they say this thing all the time. I always thought it was really dumb, and then I started checking our statistics, and it's also true. So the average person that's watching the show is not a subscriber. I don't get that. Like, just subscribe. Why don't you subscribe? It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't cost anything. Yet.
Though I will say, never mind. I'll leave that. I'll leave that out. So,
I have
but
things to say too, but then I thought, don't say that. So I won't.
yeah. It's just my personal experience with YouTube and my consumption.
Nope, don't say
Anyway,
it. Don't say it.
don't say it.
Nope,
So
just do the things. Hit the bell.
so
Do
so
it.
Russell Brand.
I was watching him on YouTube the other day.
I was watching Russell Brand.
I subscribed to him. Hit the bell.
What's funny is that I am subscribed to Russell Brand over on Rumble and on YouTube every once in a while, and I don't usually click on his content on purpose. He usually pops up, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'll check it out. But I actually heard that he was getting baptized on other channels. Other
really?
people were talking about Russell Brand
It's the
getting
talk of the
baptized.
interwebs.
And it has, I think, probably have to do with some of the Christian content that I, my 15 minutes of research for this show every week. But and so I have lots of Christian content that pops up, and some Christians, talking about Russell Brand, and other ones that are skeptical, some that are supporting him, and it's kind of an interesting hot button topic. And Russell Brand's actually showed when he announced that he was getting baptized, he wasn't baptized yet, was about Candace Owens becoming Catholic.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. So, and also Tammy Peterson became Catholic as well.
Yep.
Of Dr. Jordan Peterson fame, his lovely spouse.
Which is real. That one's actually more surprising because it strikes me odd for Peterson to go down the path of Catholicism simply because of the amount of control and the lack of agency given to the individual.
He might not be himself, but
well, that's also true.
Right.
But that seems even odder to me to have a couple at Jordan's in his mid 50s, late 50s.
He's probably
I don't
60.
know. I was
I'm if I had to guess.
Say 60. No offense, Jordan, just because you're super.
You look great, by the way.
So we assume you're a little bit older than us. We want you to be a lot older than us. So we have time to catch up. But you figure guy's 60, his wife's probably close to 60. It just seems odd for a couple at that age to pick two different religions if they're going to suddenly convert to a religion. So that would just seem odd to me. But it also, I don't know that Jordan has announced.
He turns 62 next month.
Okay, there you go. Thanks, Jamie. But yeah, so Russell, how old's Russell? 50, 54, 55?
Russell Brand?
Yeah. Probably should have looked that up before the show since
Anyway, you have thoughts on Russell Brand's conversion there, Brian?
Hey, you got What was your guess for his age, Matt?
55.
He's
He,
our age, or he's my age specifically.
I thought he was
He's our
close to
age.
our age. I thought
He's
he was a little bit
48.
older.
He is
Oh, he's only
exactly
48. Okay.
He is exactly 10 years older than us.
Russell Brand is 2.5 weeks younger than me.
There you go.
About three weeks younger than me.
Okay,
So
that makes sense. That actually makes a lot of sense.
we're the same era.
Yep.
Mr.
Mhm.
Brand and I.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are both older than me. You know,
Well,
Russell.
you know,
Sure.
1975, maybe.
I think I'm older than Matt, but
You are.
Yeah. Matt's the child of this trio.
just a young
Clearly.
pup. So did somebody ask me my thoughts on it?
Yeah,
Dre did.
what's your initial thoughts? Just real quick, like
I don't want to talk about him specifically. I think as a general principle, I think this is true in the first century, and I think it's even more true now. We should always be skeptical. We should be cautiously optimistic whenever anybody announces that they've been baptized. First of all, to today in current year, you put 10 Christians in a room, you ask them to define baptism and explain its relevance to salvation, you're going to get 12 different answers. So when Russell Brand says that he's been baptized, I don't necessarily know what that means, what it means to him, or what context that has. But even if he's doctrinally correct on what baptism is, only time will tell if it's sincere. I'm kind of Kanye West not too long ago was an outspoken Christian. He did a gospel album. Now he's launching a porn company. So it doesn't always mean it doesn't always mean anything. So that's my initial thought. But one more thought to add to that. I think I shared that clip of his interview with Jordan Peterson, specifically about his baptism. Jordan Peterson asked him about, he framed it in terms of what's been happening lately with, in terms of this resurgence of Christianity. He specifically named Douglas Murray, Tom Holland, and Richard Dawkins as if they're examples of what recently happened with Russell Brand. They're all atheists. Richard Dawkins, the more outspoken of atheists, but they all kind of acknowledge the cultural value of Christianity. And Jordan Peterson he has a reputation for being a kind of a spokesman for Christian morality and Christian ideals, but he only ever really speaks of Christianity in terms of its social utility. Obviously, people turning to cultural Christianity is an improvement on the secular, pluralist, hedonistic culture that we have now, but it's not the same as turning to Christianity. It's not the same as being reborn in the Spirit of God by following Jesus Christ. And I just think that distinction should be made, and that should inform our cautious optimism about this.
So I think I disagree with almost everything you said.
Awesome. Now we have something to talk about.
Yeah. So to start, you said, and I don't want to make this a point by point, but I wanted to make a couple of notes because you were talking, so I could follow along and I could respond. So you said guardedly optimistic. First you said skeptical, then you said guardedly optimistic.
Which was a correction.
That's fine. Yeah, I was just kind of following your train of thought. You started here and you're like, well, that's a little too much. It was kind of like, looking at your dark coffee, you poured a little cream in it. You're like, that's perfect. I feel like this, I guess my response is, so what? Like, somebody says they're a Christian, you have a personal, not you, Brian, but this Christian has this response to be guardedly optimistic. Why? What value or what benefit or what is gained by not just simply accepting them at their word? And so that's just it's a conversational question, right? Like, I don't want you to answer that. I want to respond to a couple of the things you said.
Okay.
You made the comment about the baptism, and you said if you put 10 or 12 Christians in a room and asked them what it means, that's an unfair thing to say, because if you put the 10 leaders of 10 Christian religious denominations in a room, they would tell you different things.
Exactly my point.
Well, but that's an unfair point. So the question would be, you were baptized in what denominational faith? Like, that's the only follow-on question
No.
that really should come.
Oh.
And whatever that person says about that denominational faith, like, it's a little bit of an unrealistic argument to sit and tell them, oh, you were saved in a Presbyterian church? Got news for you, buddy. You ain't really saved. Like that's not a useful conversation to have to a newly converted Christian, in my opinion. The conversation would be, are you aware of the other denominations and some of the alternate opinions about the hows and the whys, and have you given that any thought? But to use that as like to say, ha, you don't know shit about Christianity because you thought being sprinkled is being baptized, or that, regeneration and regression and which precedes which, and like, and I'm kind of wrapping this point up. Let me finish all my thoughts. Let me finish all my thoughts, Brian. You got all yours out.
Okay.
So we've had a lot of conversation on here about apologetics and being able to have a logic-based discussion about Christianity. And this is specifically why I've always pushed back against the concept of apologetics being a requirement, because to pin a young Christian on asking them to give a point-by-point dissertation as to the validity and the actual correctness of the basis of their faith would be like taking a freaking a recruit right out of boot camp and asking them to run a freaking actual infantry platoon and to understand all of the concepts of actual what comes from being a combat experienced NCO in the infantry. Like, a lot of that stuff's got to be learned. And I think it's unfair or unrealistic to expect somebody, especially like Russel Brand, who started from like getting fired from jobs because he was strung out on crack cocaine and was an avowed atheist and has made the entire journey that he's made. I would rather the Christian community applaud his willingness to continue to be spiritually curious, because the man's obviously intellectually curious. Now he's being spiritually curious. I would rather embrace him, congratulate him, and then bring him in closer so that he can learn more, rather than holding him up to some kind of an unfair rubric of I don't know. I've lost the words I'm trying to say, but I think I made my point.
Right. And I actually agree with a lot of what you just said, because you're responding to points that I didn't actually say. And I'll unpackage that. But first,
that's cool. I mean, but the point is, that's what I heard when you said what you said, right? So
yeah,
that's what causes my response. So that's not what you meant, then cool. Maybe we're closer to being on topic or on the same page.
But Dre, what do you
hang
think?
on, before we go on, what does Dre think about that?
Well,
Matt, you ignorant slut. Back to you, Dre.
I find it interesting that so many people have opinions about this, and really him in particular, because of where he came from, right? So a lot of people are skeptical of Hollywood individuals. Kanye's a big one that pops up because he, claimed to be Christian, and then in the very next breath did things that, like, whoa, we disavow, right. Disavow, you Balenciaga weirdo,
dump button.
Go away, crazy. But I mean, we're talking about, a guy that lived a lifestyle of hedonism, and I think that searching for all these pleasures and being told that, money and fame and women, those are the things that make you successful. Those are the things that are gonna have you fulfilled in life. and he had all those things and was not fulfilled in life. So much so that he turned to substances, right? And then, and even when he talks about it, he talks about, kind of the parallels of AA in his journey. So then he kind of goes from this Hollywood thing to this new age spirituality. And he Delani started following from his Kundalini stuff and his cold plunges and his spiritual and uh and we talked about new age Christianity what last week, 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
And
Yeah.
Actually, last
so
weekend, two
yes,
weeks ago.
yeah, so he was kind of in that world. In fact, he was probably, as we spoke about that, he was probably the mainstream guy. He definitely came to my mind when talking about those people. And then
What
he
do you mean, those people?
those new age people, you know what I'm talking about. uh but it seemed like he was submersed in all that, so he was knowledgeable. He will quote books. He read all the books. Then he started kind of kicking out some Christian books, and even in New Age ism, the Christ figure is oftentimes central there. So it seems like he went to the Christ figure, and then like, wait, I don't need to do the Christ figure. I need to do Christ. Right? I need to not do the
It's
off brand.
it's
I
funny you
need to
should word it that way, but I'll explain why later.
no, I think I know where you're going with that because you spoke about it last week. And also, where was I going? I kind of lost my train of thought
I thought
there,
it was
but
funny you said it was off brand, but that
yeah,
was
it's off brand. I think people's reaction was kind of wild too, because if you read like some of the tweets and Instagram comment section, people that would be Russell Brand fans are not Christians. So they're like, I can't believe this guy who always talks about seeking truth is now in this
Mhm.
closed-minded set. Or I can't believe this guy that's talking about breaking away from governmental conspiracies is now part of the conspiracy of this guy that talks about faith and love is part of the problem of evil. He is now all the atrocities that the church has perpetrated throughout the centuries. He's now immersed himself into that, and he answers those questions in his own videos, but he uses his own words. And if you like check that out, you'll check out Russell Brand's latest couple of videos, and he'll speak for himself. He doesn't let the listen to me butcher it. But
But
yeah,
you know
Brian,
what
what were
was
you?
to the point about the comments though, just real quick, Brian, before you interject. I'm a big comment guy. Like half the time that I'm on the internet watching, YouTube videos, content, or even spinning reels on my phone, I do it for the comments because the comments is where more entertainment is than in the actual content. But I was really blown away with all the comments in Russell Brand's video, that one recent one where he did the 15-minute bit about his baptism, and it was just nothing but a bunch of people saying, I did the same thing. I came through addiction and I landed here, and I'm so happy you're here with us, and welcome, brother. And there was a lot of stuff like that I thought was wildly positive and really unique in today's era of internet activity, because it's pretty rare that you get a lot of positive feedback, especially when religion's at hand. And like you said, Dre, Russell's crowd is probably the most anti-religious crowd, right up there with Rogan's crowd, right?
Right.
And by the way, he's on my short list. I think we'll see Joe Rogan in the next 2 to 3 years come to the same conclusion.
I have been bombarding his inbox
Hell yeah.
With suggestions that he have William Lane Craig on.
Yeah.
Because like, yeah, I love Joe Rogan. I feel like I feel like we'd be like great friends if the four of us hung out. We'd be peas in a pod. But every time, and I have a profound level of respect for the man, for his intellectual curiosity, but every time, if he's talking about Christianity, if there's a way for him to be wrong about it, he is profoundly wrong about it. Like, I don't mean like him giving his opinion, like a values judgment, like I think Christianity's stupid. I mean something like where the Bible came from, or you know, what the Council of Nicaea was, all the usual stuff. If there's a way for him to be objectively wrong, he's always wrong.
The good thing about Joe, and but by the way, that's true for Joe with everything, right? Like Joe reads something on the internet, he just runs with it until he gets shown in super black and white that it's wrong, that he's incorrect, and he will come off of it when he's wrong. And that's what I love about Joe, is he's happy to be proven wrong.
Yeah, and that's why having William
that's why you want William Lane Craig, because he
be,
can prove Joe wrong about
like
this.
I want to watch in real time. I want to watch the wheel spin behind his eyes and just see the lights come on. Like that would be an awesome thing to behold. That I'd rather watch that than an eclipse or some
it would be
rare
an
awesome
experience in the truest meaning of the word awesome, for sure.
But let's see. Is it my turn? Were you
Why not?
done with
yeah.
If we're doing round robin today, so Mr. Irvin, you have 5 minutes.
Okay. Where to start? Well, to clarify, like I'm not, no, I don't expect you know, a PhD level theological sophistication from somebody who got baptized 5 minutes ago. That's not the bar I'm setting. It's not that. And the reason I started off like speaking generally was anytime there's a new convert, anytime somebody recently comes to Christ, you don't just assume they have it figured out, they understand what's going on. They need to be mentored. They need to be taught.
Sure.
But often we treat that like it's the finish line. And probably one of the best examples of what I'm talking about, it was, you know, you talked about the, you know, you push back on my remark about you get 10 Christians together and ask them about baptism, you're going to get 12 different responses. And you said, no, that would be true of the leaders. Exactly my point. Probably the best way to illustrate this, you know, regardless of denomination, what do you guys think about infant baptism?
I think it's a terrible idea.
I hate it.
Okay, why?
Because the infant has no agency in the event.
They have no age of accountability. Like why baptize them?
Yeah.
Like, because baptism isn't what saves you, right? Faith in Christ is what saves you. Right. And I don't think you should be baptized unless you have faith in Christ, which is why I've put off my baptism my whole life, because I can't commit to something and be, you know, hold the title of something that I don't particularly know that's true. You know, I'm coming closer all the time, but it's why I was never baptized in the J-Dubs faith. It's why I've been married for 30 years in this Mormon faith, and I couldn't, you know, look my wife in the eye and say, hey, yeah, me and God are tying this knot and we're doing this thing, when I haven't, you know, come to the realization that that is true. So to me, if I can't do it, then how can an infant do that, right? And for that matter, you know, how can an 8-year-old? but at least an 8-year-old can read, and at least an 8-year-old can understand stories, and at least an 8-year-old can be reasoned with. But I'm of the mind personally, you know, Andre Bibbs, The World According to Him, is you have to understand. I think you should be able to articulate back what you mean by being baptized, right, in order to be baptized. You know, if which is what I thought was kind of cool about the J-Dubs, is that they went through like a rigorous 1-year training program. You know, maybe that's to immerse you in the cult, I don't know, but you had to like pass a test. Like you had to, and then after you pass a test, you had to interview with elders. And Mom, if I got this wrong, you know, let us know in the comments, or give me a call, text me or something. But, you know, and then after you pass a test with the elders, now you're worthy of being baptized. And to me, an infant or a child doesn't, I mean, maybe there's a Doogie Howser MD type kid that
not as an infant though,
that even rates to be baptized, you know.
Yeah.
You know, but
so Brian, what do you think about it, since you asked us?
Well, Well, given everything that you just said, do you still think it's unfair of me, like what I said about the 10 Christians and 12 answers about baptism? Because I can guarantee you some in that group of 10
No,
subscribe to infant baptism.
Sure, and they do. And by the way, before we go any further, I made a note earlier. I just randomly threw out Presbyterians would say this. I have no idea what Presbyterians believe about baptism. So if somebody's a Presbyterian, I just it popped into my head as a random denomination.
Tell you what, if you're mad at Matt for bringing up Presbyterians, direct your anger at me, because I will go right out.
Well,
I will go right
I
ahead
can't
and say,
I mean, I'm happy to have a fight for
Presby-
no reason, but
the-
I didn't mean anything when I
Yeah,
said that. That was purely randomness.
I will say that I doubt any Presbyterians listen to us because we've crapped
Why?
on Calvinism so much.
Yeah, but maybe they want to. Maybe they
Yeah.
they just want to come and argue with us.
But I will say that the Presbyterian view of baptism is among the worst.
Are they fully reformed? Is that a reformed denomination?
Yeah, they're
I didn't know
reformed.
that.
Yeah, that's Reformed theology. That's Calvinism. But they
Well, I know
believe in-
Reformation is Calvinism. I didn't know Presbyterians were reformed.
Yeah, Presbyterians are like uber Calvinists. They're like
Okay.
the Calvinist denomination.
Then we probably
but
don't
they
have any Presbyterian listeners.
they believe in sprinkling infant baptism. And yeah, I agree with you guys about infant baptism. I think the idea of infant baptism has about as much credibility and respectability as the idea of infant repentance.
Right.
Um,
Do they come up with that? Is it like a your original sin, and you're washing away original sin and giving the baby a clean start on life or something? Is that what they're coming up with?
Typically the common defense of it is that because Paul talks about, because baptism is the sign of the covenant,
Mhm.
and it therefore replaces circumcision, which is done with infants.
So Presbyterians don't circumcise?
No,
You just said it replaces.
as the
covenant, as the
sign of the
sign.
covenant. You know how
Right.
like Jews are circumcised on the 8th day
Right.
as a sign of the covenant. And Paul talks about, this, you've been, baptism is the circumcision not done with hands, but by Christ, the circumcision of your heart.
Right.
Therefore they reason infant baptism it corresponds to infant circumcision, which is, it's terrible reasoning, partly because it's true in the sense that salvation by grace through faith replaces
Cutting of your skin and
or justification under the law.
Right.
Right.
And even in the Old Testament, you do have the condemnation for those who are circumcised only in the flesh, but they're not circumcised in their heart.
Mhm. So that's a weird, I know what you mean, but that's a weird phrase, but I understand. It just
right. Like I understand it's weird to modern ears, but the idea is that you're cutting away this source of corruption from the flesh.
Mhm.
And this is supposed to signify the cutting away of the sinful part of your nature, which of course it's a type of, that points to the new covenant. But the new covenant, like you can't, just as you can't circumcise a baby's heart, you can only circumcise their flesh. So you can only baptize their flesh. You can't, I mean, Dre said it as well as I could. They have no agency. You can't have faith. I think the idea of this confusion about baptism, I'm in like multiple like Christian groups on Facebook, and it seems like every couple of weeks there's an argument breaks out about whether you need baptism for salvation and what it means to what the role of.
Yeah, it seems like it goes along with your theme of getting your card punched, right? It's another punch hole. It's another step or a check in the box to get into heaven, right? I gotta do this, and then I have to get baptized.
Yeah,
after I'm baptized,
Yeah.
then it means
it's a
I'm
law
good to
of
go.
faith.
It doesn't fucking matter what I do next, because I get my free Subway sandwich after these 10. I get my free Blockbuster rental
Yeah. And
Which when you get a free Blockbuster rental, that pretty much is heaven. So I'm just saying, if you're 80s
Heaven on
kid like
earth,
me,
anyway.
yeah, that's right. So
modern kids just don't understand.
they just don't get it.
But there is a sense in which it just, I'm not saying this to argue with you, Dre, but I think it requires some qualification. What does it say? Sorry, I had the verse right in front of me and I lost it. But yeah, in First Peter 3, verse 20, he talks about for Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring you to God. He was put to death in the body, but made alive in the spirit. The ark is built, only a few people. And this water, the water of the flood, symbolizes baptism that now saves you also, not the removal of dirt from the body, but the pledge of a clear conscience toward God. It saves you by the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who has gone into heaven and is at God's right hand. So according to 1 Peter 3, baptism saves you. But the question is, and how does it save you? What does it mean that baptism saves you? And we read throughout the New Testament that baptism is you're being lowered into death in identification with Christ's death, and then raised again to life to participate with Christ in his life. The ritual itself does not save you. What the ritual signifies is what saves you. It gives you the experience of being lowered into death with Christ and then raised again.
I
I don't have any quibbles.
Yeah,
I don't think you're arguing with me at all there.
I think the easiest analogy is the carryover, the connection from baptism to salvation is just it's aligned to James's comment about faith without works is dead, right? Like,
yeah,
if you were saved and you didn't want to be baptized, were you really saved? I think it's the same thing, right? Like any man or woman that has found this relationship and has understood the bond and has accepted the grace of God, you then go and do this public thing to proclaim your faith for all man to see, right? Like that's really all it is. And it's the symbolic, physical reenactment of what occurred within you, right, in the privacy of your own home or with you and your pastor or your rabbi or whatever, right? Like I think it's really that simple. I don't think there's anything more
It's like
spiritual,
any ritual,
metaphysical
right?
than that.
It's like getting married. That's not what your marriage is. The
Right.
fact that you put a ring on each other's finger.
Right.
That's
Or
that's
that you
for everyone. That's for
or that
you
you
to
spent
declare.
$30,000 on
Right.
flowers and all of the
That's
junk.
the
Yeah.
public spectacle. That's like jumping up on the table, or like Tom Cruise on Oprah's couch, jumping up and down saying that he loves Katie Holmes, right? That's not the actual, that's not the wedding. That's not the real vows. It's not the intimacy that you have with your partner. That's just the public display.
I think the three of us are in agreement on this. But just to make it's such a hotly debated topic among Christians that I think it's worth belaboring a little bit, because it feeds into a broader point that I want to make about Russell Brand and this recent spate of celebrity conversions. It's a ritual that symbolizes Christ's death and resurrection, but it's meant to, just believing in it as a doctrine is, you have to live it out. You have to, the first step in Acts chapter 2, when Peter preaches to the Israelites about the resurrection. Therefore, brothers, know that God has made this Jesus whom you crucified, both Lord and Messiah. And the Israelites heard this and they were cut to the heart and said, brothers, what should we do? And Peter said, I used to have this memorized. Peter replied, repent and be baptized, every one of you, in the name of Jesus Christ for the forgiveness of your sins, and you will receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. The promise is for you and your children and for all who are far off, for all whom the Lord our God will call. But the first thing he said, like, you have to, just believing about Jesus Christ that's not faith. Doctrinal correctness is not faith. Believing in him is faith, which means you do what he says. And the first step is to cross this threshold of of baptism, in which you identify with him in his death and resurrection, and it gives you the experience of being lowered in death and raised with him in life, and that gives that memory, that tactile, visceral touchstone in your life of having done that, that forever connects you to Jesus Christ in a way that goes beyond mere doctrinal affirmation. And the point of all that is that it's active. You have to take an initiative to obey him. And the reason I bring that up with Russell Brand is, and everything I've heard him say on baptism, it comports with what I find in scripture. It seems like he has the right idea about what baptism is. But he's also given he's mentioned that he prays the rosary, which suggests to me that he was baptized into Catholicism, which is a sect of Christianity that does infant baptism. And my point isn't that this is, as a denomination, Catholicism is bad, even though I don't agree with Catholicism. It's what the idea of infant baptism conveys about salvation itself. It's something passive. It's something that is done to the person, and then we think of that, having undergone that ritual, as sort of, now the person's saved. This having undergone this ritual, having submitted to these completely man-made traditions, frankly. Not completely, because baptism is biblical, but the way it's being done is man-made. The point is, it's passive. We have this kind of passive idea of what salvation is by undergoing the ritual, by subscribing to the traditions, by identifying with the tribe and the culture. This is what saves you. We all kind of know on paper that that's wrong, but in practice, it's something that's easy to fall into. And you see this throughout the Gospels. You see this in, all of Jesus's preachings to, he's teaching the crowds. He's speaking in parables because he knows they're not going to get the real truth. They're going to be blind to it because they're blinded by their traditions. That's what they're putting their trust in. Nicodemus was, he was a leader of the right religion. He had the right God, the right scriptures, and he counted on that to ensure that he was in good with God. But Jesus told him, no, none of that does anything for you, because you're not born again. So baptism is supposed to be the ritual through which we're born again, but there's a danger in just trusting in the ritual as a ritual without the reality to it, which touches upon the stuff I said before about cultural Christianity. But I've been monologuing for a while, and thought I'd stop and see if you guys
Yeah. So, I mean, like, you picked up on the rosary thing, and then that causes you to leap to, yeah, but Catholics do the rosary, and Catholics believe in baptizing babies, so now maybe his baptism.
Let me clarify real fast.
Okay.
I'm not ruling out at all. I just want to make this abundantly clear. I am not ruling out the sincerity and legitimacy of Russell Brand's baptism or salvation. Like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm rooting for him. I'm a fan. I want it to be real. I haven't heard anything that tells me it's not. But as with any new convert, you don't want to just assume that from the get-go and just assume they're good. Only time will tell. That's all I'm saying.
Sure. No, I get that. That's not all I was saying is you made a comment that, him saying something about the rosary, it troubled you. I'm spitting words in your mouth, but I mean, that's essentially what you said. But the thing is, so by the way, I didn't know the prayers of the rosary, so I Googled them real quick. And for anybody that doesn't know, it's 5 prayers. 2 of them are the Apostles' Creed and the Lord's Prayer, and then there's a short one called the Glory Be, which is it's like a I think it's a haiku. And then there's the Hail Mary, and then
Probably not a
Hail
haiku.
Holy Queen. I think it is. Glory be to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and shall ever be, world without end. Amen. That feels like a haiku. I need to do the math.
I mean,
But the
if
point
it's a
is
haiku, it's accidental, but
that'd be kind of cool. It's like
well,
it's a divine haiku.
it,
But my point is simply, whether or not Russell prays all of them, who knows? Um, the if the worst thing that happens with somebody praying the rosary is it creates a pattern, a muscle memory of praying on a regular basis when they're having moments of trouble or doubt, but Russell also strikes me, and I'm just guessing, I don't know the guy, I've never met him, but he seems like the type of person that if and when they were to become a Christian, that they're certainly going to be a non-denominational Christian. Like nothing about Russel Brand says he's going to be a Southern Baptist, right? Or whatever denomination. And by the way, I was raised Southern Baptist, so that's why I threw that one in this time, because I want to leave the Presbyterians alone.
Does the Church of England rosary?
I doubt it, but that's a great question, because they were one of the first
well,
like Anglican and
I'm sure they were initially.
Because they're super similar, right?
But
so,
right.
I mean, Anglicanism is basically just Catholicism, but with the monarch of England as the head of the church instead of the Pope.
He's like, I'm getting divorced, so it's not my church. Look at me.
But
I am the church now.
It's pretty much what happened. But it's the praying to Mary stuff that I find objectionable.
So yeah, but I'm with you, and I was going to make a point about that, but since Dre just said something, I just looked up their Anglican prayer beads, and the Anglican prayers that go with their version of the rosary, there's not anything to Mary in that. So the prayers are the invitatory, the cruciforms, the weeks, the Lord's Prayer, and the cross.
Yeah, I mean,
so I just learned something, right? Like that's interesting.
If I had to bet money, I would say that when he says he's praying the rosary, I mean, it's in a Catholic setting, but I could be wrong, and that's not really my point. It's just
I get it's not your main point. I was just picking up on it as something to horn in on, right? Just to
I don't know. I think somebody who is deeply into the New Age and in a self-professed meditator, and you can even get on a channel with him and meditate with him, that I think that prayer is really a real easy transition
from meditation
from meditation
100%
to that. So I'm not positive that he's just praying the rosary. I think that he's kind of channeling.
I think that's tricky though, when you're coming into Christianity from New Ageism or some other religion. I don't think it's necessarily disqualifying. I just, from my own experience, and from which comports pretty well with the experience of others I've met who have had similar backgrounds. I was, as you guys knew me at the time, I was like heavily into Eastern martial arts. I was basically a Buddhist. That was my understanding of spirituality. I would meditate in the Zen Buddhist tradition and method, and it was a kind of a regular thing for me. That was my spiritual life, and I became a Christian. And I actually went to a dojo in downtown Honolulu, like a few months after I became a Christian, and it like just I was convicted about it, and I went back to the barracks, and I threw away all of my books on Eastern philosophy and martial arts and anything related to Eastern martial arts and Eastern philosophy. It was just, I threw it in the dumpster, and I just kind of disavowed it. Which is what I needed to do to kind of start over fresh and kind of just become a Christian from a place of, without, confusion or, mixing traditions. But as I matured in my faith, and I learned more about Christian mystical tradition, I kind of went full circle, and I discovered that there was a lot of overlap between some aspects of Zen Buddhism in terms of the meditative methods and Christian mysticism, but I had to learn that first. I had to kind of start with the basics.
But my point wasn't, the fundamentals or basics. My point is that a lot of people don't know how to pray. So if you are doing just the rosary or the Lord's Prayer, and Matt talked about a muscle memory, I just don't believe that for a guy who meditates on the regular would have trouble with that transition, would have
Okay.
trouble with being able to pour out his heart and thoughts into the divine when he's already used to doing that. And now it's like, no, I now know where that energy needs to go now. That was my only point. My point was is that I don't think that he's got a cue card out and doing the rosary. I think he prays. I'm guessing, total speculation, but I would guess that he's been praying for a long time.
Yeah. And
It's funny because the muscle memory thing is interesting. We'll go to a segue here for a quick second. Prayer. I had developed a prayer that I kind of used pretty much all the time, right? And it was somewhat systemic. Like it had some components that I kind of always plugged together, and they were about this and about that. And then one day I don't know if I was at church or reading or what, and I came across the Lord's Prayer when, Christ said, if you're going to pray, do it like this. And I swapped my old prayer for the Lord's Prayer, which I had to learn because I didn't actually know the Lord's Prayer. I didn't grow up reciting it on a regular basis. But then I realized that I had essentially created, my version of the Lord's Prayer, which was the point that Jesus, was in giving us the Lord's Prayer. He was giving us the component parts, right? Be thankful, forgiveness, all the things, right? And, throughout the Lord's Prayer, they all just kind of trace. But I've also found that there's times that I'll stop to pray and I'll start in my head, like doing the Lord's Prayer. And I've actually created an autopilot thread within my brain where I can do the Lord's Prayer and think about other stuff at the same time. And it's really weird. I'm kind of oversharing, but it's just the way my brain works. I don't know if I'm like neurodivergent or whatever the hell all those catchphrases are that people use. But I can actually have the Lord's Prayer running and I know where I am in it. And I'm having another thought about something completely unrelated to God or even potentially contrary to the prayer that I'm having. And I stop and catch myself and I'm like, Matt, bro, focus on the prayer. Like, and this is all going on inside my head, not like I'm not talking or moving or my eyes are closed. It's really wild. So I don't know. I guess all of that was apropos to nothing except to say sometimes maybe there's too much muscle memory involved in praying, and there's something to be said for bespoke prayer in a moment versus it being a continuously channeled thing. And then I'm jumping thinking about like, all the exorcist type movies where the priests are doing the rosary literally, right? And they're just doing it over and over and over and over again. And I don't know, like I don't know. I don't know what the hell that has to do with anything, but it felt like it fit in the moment. So
we might consider, maybe if the listeners are interested, maybe we should do an episode on prayer and how and why and what or something.
I
Because
think it's a reasonable topic.
I have thoughts about what you just said and responses that I could offer, but I don't like.
It would be a little bit of a
it would be
right turn in Albuquerque.
It'd be a bit of a detour, yeah. But like I said when I started, my intention isn't to dissect or deconstruct or criticize or even question Russel Brand in particular as an individual. It's just that my main interest in this is, there is this kind of spate of celebrity conversions, or at least celebrity acknowledgments of Christianity. I'm like,
there are more that are not afraid to say that they are Christian, and that's like Julia Roberts and Sandra Bullock and Tom Hanks and some people that are pretty high up there.
I wasn't aware of those, but
yeah, and they've just said, hey, no, I'm Christian. They into.
What was the other one? It
I
was
don't.
Matthew McConaughey,
Yeah,
and Matt Damon. Couple of
sure.
Matts.
Yeah, I mean, they were named after a pretty important book. I don't know, so, or some saint, some guy. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah. This
Some
guy.
Saint Matthew of Lamore.
Yeah.
Um,
Does that mean he's
but
black?
no, there's an E on the end.
Oh,
Totally different. Totally different. One is an Islam, like a Saracen, like an
oh,
Islamic
so you're not talking about
warrior.
Sicilians being spawned by Africans.
The other is
They did so. Never
no,
mind.
Saracens, not Sicilians.
Oh,
Saracens.
serious.
The other is from Oklahoma, is a town in Oklahoma. So
Oh, I see.
totally no
Home of Toby
relation.
Keith, R.I.P.
Yeah. What was I talking about?
Yeah.
Talking about
Oh
prayer.
yeah,
I took us
like
into a. I took us
no,
into a.
I was
rabbit
talking
hole.
about cultural Christianity. Like there's a Ian Hersey Ali recently came out, and she was part of the new atheism movement. Former Muslim who became an atheist in reaction against just the ugliness of Islam that she grew up in, and has recently announced her conversion to Christianity. But hearing her talk about it, it's a very Jordan Peterson type Christianity. Like she talked about it in terms of its social utility, in terms of its cultural value, which is the same thing Tom Holland, the historian,
Hang
who's
on,
an
hang on.
atheist.
I want to cut you off real quick, Brian. I don't think that's a fair representation of Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson has not said he's a Christian. Jordan
Yeah,
Peterson
absolutely.
is still actually struggling with it. In fact, he had a
I,
really honest response when someone said, "Are you completely in on this?" And he said, "No."
no, I agree with that.
Right, but
But
what you said sounded like Jordan Peterson is a social Christian, or that he said he's a Christian, but he's not.
no, my only point in that, but he does have that reputation as there was a panel he was on,
A deep dive on
actually
Exodus.
quite a few panels he was on where he was billed as the Christian representative on the panel.
Well, that's the panel's fault. That's not Jordan's fault.
Sure, but my point is that's his
He just knows how to
reputation.
speak for them,
Right.
But
I
that
think,
but when
historically and
Yeah.
well
doctrinally.
Well, no, not doctrinally.
Yeah.
That's my point. He speaks at great length about the Bible and Christianity, but he speaks in terms of its social utility.
Well, he also talks about the historical accuracies about it also. He does get into that stuff.
But the point is, he's not a believer. He is not
That's
a
correct.
follower
I
of
agree.
Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
no, I wanted to clarify that because what you said made it sound like
Well, no, but that's my
a
whole
false
point.
Christian.
That a lot of Christians are celebrating this as if this is a renaissance of Christianity. And if that's true, and it's true only in an extremely limited cultural sense, and I think it's lulling a lot of people into a false confidence, a false sense of security.
See, this is where I disagree with you.
Well,
right. I think so too, because I think that over the last 20 years, we have been talking about the decline of just religion in general and
right.
people not believing even in a higher power.
Not to mention it's become cool to make fun of religion in the
Right.
last 20 to 30 years.
Because
right?
religion is the source of all evil.
Right.
In the last over the last 20 years, that's been a theme, and that's why people.
I'm in agreement so far.
So to me, is that true? Are people opening up at least to the idea that there is a greater power, that morality does come from more than just the whims of society, that there is a central thing that drives us, that motivates us, that
Well, when I talk about Tom Holland, you know who Tom Holland is?
no,
I don't.
Like
I've heard of him,
other
but
than Spider-Man, as well as being Spider-Man.
Is it Tom Holland, the actor?
He's
Is
also
that
a
who we're
well-known
talking about?
historian. No,
Oh,
it's
so
a
not
different
that Tom
It's a
Holland.
different Tom
yeah.
Holland. But it's fun to pretend Tom Holland, the
Well, I
historian.
mean, it fits
is
with
also
him being Drake, right?
what?
Tom Holland was Drake Uncharted. So if he was going to be a
Oh,
historian, that would
right,
be
Yeah.
right.
all right.
Yeah.
I thought that joke was easier to land than that. I didn't know it was
Yeah.
going to be that
I
hard.
was just talking about how Tom Holland, the historian,
It's
is
when Tom Holland was part of
also
the Funky Bunch.
is also. Those are different characters.
Same guy,
Okay, doesn't matter.
Bumblebee. I,
What
so
the hell was
about
I
this
talking about?
historian,
Tom Holland, he's an atheist.
right?
He wrote a book called Dominion, and he's been on a lot of interviews and
Oh, that
podcasts
guy.
and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, that guy.
I know who you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. The Tom Spider-Man did not write that book.
Right.
Although
Be a lot cooler if he did.
Right.
it would be pretty cool. Yeah.
He dates Zendaya though. That's kind of cool.
Did he?
She's anyway.
No, I'm saying it's cool, not.
I'm not even close to a fan.
Oh wow.
I would be jealous of a man who dated Zendaya.
I wouldn't say that.
I don't even care that I'm old.
I'd dump her for the emperor's daughter in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Oh, Florence Pugh. You're okay.
Yeah,
Now we're talking
duh.
about anyway. So the reason I bring up Tom Holland, he he speaks very favorably of Christianity. He credits Christianity with the scientific revolution, with basically the cultural superiority of the West. He's an atheist. Richard Dawkins calls himself a cultural Christian.
Mm-hmm. I watched that video actually where he explains that.
Yep.
Yeah, and which is not new. I mean, it does kind of speak to how foolish he's been as the, one of the horsemen of the new atheism movement, in his effort to destroy Christianity.
And he even says it in the same video, which is really stupid.
Yeah,
but I think though.
But let me make my point here. Like, I have a lot to say about the Richard Dawkins thing, but my point is, I think these are good developments. I'm happy about them. Like, I'm not saying I'm not saying the world's still ending even though this is happening, although the world may be ending even though this is happening. My point is that Christians have historically shown we've been too easily seduced by cultural victories, and we left it at that. Christianity holding sway culturally is not the same as people being saved, as the church being functional and doing its job. A lot of times the church will kind of like sit back and let things go because they don't feel the pressure anymore, because the culture is accepting. That's a mistake I don't want us to fall into again. I think we have an advantage that we could press, but we still have to become functional and faithful in a way that we're not, in order for that advantage to matter. Otherwise, we're going to have a temporary relief from it's a speed bump on the way to the destruction of our civilization. It's not going to stop it.
Though, I think you're right with the trend. And to me, where I see trend is when you talk about 18 to 25-year-olds now believe in God. So Gen Z is actually more faithful than millennials. And I think that's huge. Also, Christians still have babies. Right? So here we are in a lot of Western countries that are just not keeping up with replacement rate for having children.
Yeah.
Where if you're on the Christian side of these Western countries, you are. So just by cultural, generational upbringing, and as media is losing a little bit of worth by being called liars constantly, and people are skeptical of government and the powers that be, and just young people in counterculture alone. It's funny, like, young people used to be the liberals. Well, now all those young people that were liberals are now the school teachers, and these young people that are coming up are like, shut up, lady. You know what? I think it's ironic. I'll be funny and be conservative. and Christian just to piss you off.
Right.
Where but if you're in that, even if at first you are just trying to be silly, you start getting some muscle memory and start reading it, start believing it. Your dad taught you that because your dad was Christian, right? So now even if you rebel a little bit, you still have that seed planted in the back of your mind of, what, culture will. It looks like the pendulum is swinging back to the cultural
I think that was what I was
Christian
trying to.
way.
That was the only point that I was trying to make. Also, was that exact point, Dre? Is that it's they're baby steps that get us closer to the end. And I
Right.
and I get it, Brian. You're not saying that it's not terrible, right? But I guess let me say it like this:
It's a positive development, but it's
it's not the end.
temporary.
Sure,
And,
it's
but,
not
and
the
we
end,
and we
right?
should seize this moment.
Right. Yeah, that's all I'm saying is like applaud it, lean into it, right? Rather than have a curmudgeonly response to it. Which
Are
is
you saying I have a curmudgeonly response
absolutely,
to it?
yeah, like you're like, bah, they're not real Christians. They're just kind of
That's
Christian. They still suck. And it's like, well, yeah, they still suck,
that's not. But that's
they're
not what I.
incrementally better than where we were before, right? The Overton windows moving back towards religion is really kind of the point that Dre's making, right?
I freaking said all that.
This
I
is
absolutely. I
this
said all that.
this is when
After
you
you said,
this is
get off my
but this
grass.
is when you become that mentor you're talking about, Brian. This is when we
No, you don't want
steer
me to
kids
do that.
we steer kids to this show.
Right.
There's more and more. You go on YouTube, there's lots of like young dudes with ball caps and earrings, just talking God. It's out there now. There's, you know, the, just lots of young men talking about masculinity.
This is my pet
That's
lion.
which is an interesting
We should
thing,
get
and
we should get into that in a follow-on episode.
for sure.
The resurgency of masculinity or something to that effect. That'd be a good episode. Hey, I need to close the loop on something we just talked about a second ago. Zendaya, seriously, like she's not even the hottest Mary Jane of the Spider-Man movies. Like,
Well,
Did you see?
she's hella mid.
she's not Kristen Dunst.
I don't know what you
No.
want, man.
Kristen
Okay.
Dunst smokes Zendaya.
Okay. That's
In
fine.
lots of aspects,
Maybe
but
not in
no,
singing.
not in face.
I,
So
I mean, I think Zendaya is astonishingly beautiful. I
mean,
think you're
she's
whatever. I mean,
and
she,
Gwen Stacy's where it's at.
and
Who's that?
you're talking
She's
about
in
Emma
Amazing
Stone?
Spider-Man.
Are you
So
talking
Emma
about Emma Stone?
Emma Stone's like goofy, and I think she's more adorable than both of those
Okay.
other
Well,
Spider-Man love interests.
This was not a direction I thought we'd go in. But
I just need
He's
to
closed
close
the
that
loop.
loop. Like it came out as a casual
have you seen
throwaway.
Have you seen The Greatest Showman?
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's the love interest of Troy Bolton slash
Zac Efron.
slash Van, damn it,
Van Matter.
Von Erichs.
Oh, Von Erich, yeah.
David Von Erich, if you will.
So
Ted Bundy, if you will.
Did you ever watch that, Dre? Did you end up seeing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah, we'll talk about it after.
So
So look, here's the bottom line is
Stone Cold said so.
My take, my wrap up, my cumulative thought on Russell Brand. I am amazingly happy for him. He seems and sounds to have found what he was looking for. First and foremost, right? Like just his tone of voice is different when he's talking about it. He's not being his manic, frantic, attempting to make everything a joke. He's being much slower and deliberate in his speech. He seems very emotional. Like it looked like he was fighting back tears as he was talking about his experience, and not the experience of the baptism, the whole faith journey that he's been on. I'm super intrigued. I'm here for the ride, right? And I hope he's able to be as powerful a voice for Christianity as he has been for the concept of the truth and all of the other things that he's been championing, right? Like he's built this massive media following, and it couldn't this I mean, think about this. So without being too reformed, what if he had become a Christian like right out of the gate? We wouldn't know who the hell he is.
How do you figure?
Because all of the stuff that is Russell Brand has been because of the wildness of his lifestyle.
Yeah, but that presupposes that
he would be this mid-level British comedic actor. And he would be written out of Hollywood by now.
I think that implies that like being a Christian would mean like all the stuff that like all of his talent and appeal would be muted or
no,
lessened.
that's not what I'm saying. What I'm
Even
saying
though I think
is
it would be.
He's the sum total of his experiences. And without all of his experiences, he wouldn't be the Russell Brand that he is today. And he wouldn't be relevant. And the three of us would not be talking about him.
Fundamentally disagree with that.
I don't, because I think that because of the lifestyle that he led is what led Hollywood to give him a push.
That's exactly my point.
So if he didn't get that push,
defensible, sure.
He would just be a guy, and then we wouldn't.
He'd be Rowan Atkinson, part 2.
I think
the funny British comedian.
And this kind of ties into my bottom line, which is we tend to treat conversion as the finish line. Okay, now you've converted. I'm not saying you two necessarily.
No, I specifically said I'm here for the rest of it because I want to watch it and be a part of it. Like,
but the church, Christians tend to treat conversion as, okay, now you're in, now you're going to heaven, and now you're it's a done deal. Scripturally, no, that's the start. Because you have the divine nature, now because you've been lowered with Christ into death and raised with him to life. Therefore, make every effort to add to your faith excellence, knowledge, self-control, perseverance, godliness, brotherly kindness, love. It has to be active. You have to pursue that. You have to strive. You have to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. It's not passive. And that's kind of the cultural view of Christianity, is that infant baptism is something that's even on the table for reasonable debate, when it's not scripturally. You have to
but
have
all
agency.
Of these things to me are the why this is such an interesting thing to happen to Russell Brand, because he's the last thing, he's the farthest from passivity, right? Like he's only going to be moving forward and digging, and everything he's done, he's become deeper into it, right? He does more and more and more of it. He's a little manic in a good way about what he does. And so if he continues to be Russell Brand, like it's going to be a pretty interesting story that continues.
Yeah, I would love to like revisit this in 10 years and discuss Russell Brand, the great Christian reformer who
right,
who got Christians to get off their ass and take initiative and make that every effort that I just talked about from Second
He
Peter.
might be the next C.S. Lewis.
What I think is interesting about this whole kind of movement is that on this show we talk about the powers that be, right? This spiritual war that's taken place. We have good versus evil in the background playing all of this, and Americans have this weird. I heard somebody put it this way: we've been inoculated to Christ because we've had so much bullshit talking about Christ, and that Jesus is kind of a cultural thing that's in our face all the time in our culture, so that when the real thing comes around, we kind of like not. It just is what it is. We do Christmas. I do whatever,
That's kind of been my point here. But
yeah, we've been inoculated, and I think that evil recently in the last 20 years have perhaps overplayed their hand. and tried to get us to do things that were unnatural in this world. And I think COVID was a really big indicator of that. So no wonder old things become new again. You know, this old arcane uh, book that people think is outdated and not relevant. All these old ideas are being shed anew. We have a rebirth. Like maybe our intellectual reason has kind of played itself. So now we have to get into some spiritual thing to understand that this material world is not all that there is, and that all of your success and finances and how many chicks you bang is not the end goal. It's not even the right path to get to the end goal. It's a distraction. I think that um, what's interesting is something that Russell Brand said is that he realized that Christ was always there. So regardless of of what he believed and how he lived his life, that Jesus was always right there. And I think that's a lesson for all of us. That he hasn't gone away. We're the ones not seeing him, right? We're the ones that are not noticing the the father of all things, the creator of this universe that's always right in front of you. And all you have to do is seek. Like it's there. It's already there. And I think this new leaning toward this open idea that there even is God is the first step in kind of this culture over the last 50 years or so that has I kept saying 20, but I think it's gone back even farther, that those people are wrong, and this new way, in this new light, because of the distrust of people. And now we have to go lean on something stronger than that. And we here we are in a generation where we have all things. Anything you need, you
Right.
have it, right? And yet people are more depressed. They have more anxiety. They're on more pills.
That's a
They're on
crazy, that's a whole separate, like,
Nobody's starving
I
to
could
death
spend
in the
so many
Western
hours
world.
on that point right there.
Yeah.
I was having this conversation in a philosophy group that I was in, and they just keep
I
on
just
with,
want to interrupt Matt to say, Dre, I love everything you just said.
yeah,
Go on, Matt.
yeah, I do
Yeah.
too. I actually almost said amen at one point. Like it almost got to like the point of it sounding like a sermon.
No,
But
I kind of wanted him to keep going, but then
I was spitballing, so I'm glad you saved me.
I could feel him starting to peter out a little bit. We've got a little bit of a rhythm here. We kind of know what's going on. But this philosophy group, like the people in there, they continue to just point out bad things all the time, and it's all the man and capitalism and greed and blah blah blah, right? And somebody made the comment, they were like, we live in the greatest era ever, and they were like, great for who? Maybe great if you're rich.
capitalism is pretty awesome.
I mean, it's done okay for most people, right?
It's kind of the best thing there's ever been.
Did
But
a
I made the
king
point.
have air conditioning?
Right. I was like, that's
Did he
exactly
have
what I said
refrigeration?
in the group. I said,
Yeah.
guys, I said the poorest person right now
Lives better than a pharaoh.
than the 16, even go back to the 1600s. Like, medicine was pretty questionable, electricity, like all the things.
Mass transit?
But they're starved. They have an empty spot inside of them. They're starved for
Right.
meaning.
Right.
And so they have to have something to push against that.
Mhm.
They need a crusade. They need a fight.
Right.
And
They need a revolution. They need
Yeah.
to go on college campuses and fight for people 7,000
But they don't
miles
even understand
away.
what's going on or anything.
And-
Yeah. I made the point in the group. I said, for a philosophy group, y'all need a lot more stoicism in your lives.
well, and like reading the Bible, like I'm not a dispensationalist, but I think there's something to
What does that mean?
Well, there's the two different like mainstream interpretations of the Bible. There's covenant theology, which organizes the Bible and human history according to certain covenants God made with humanity.
Okay.
And then there's
That's
dispensational
the whole
theology.
the Abrahamic covenant, and then
That's
the Mosaic covenant, and
exactly.
okay.
Exactly. Yeah. And then there's dispensationalism, which has it that history is organized into different dispensations where God says, okay, you can, you have to eat only plants. Okay. Now you can eat animals. Okay. Now it's the law. Okay. Now the law is over.
But aren't those kind of connected?
Well, I
don't want to turn
have
this into a dispensational versus covenant
just
dialogue, but
as a footnote before I get to the point I was making, I've asked people on both sides. I'm like, why is it one or the other? Why aren't both valid ways of reading it? And I'm always answered with, because if you talk to somebody of covenant theology, they always like, that you must be a dispensationalist. And vice versa. It's always like, I'm not one of those scumbags who believes
how many
that.
things can Christians find to fight about?
Apparently a lot.
I mean,
it's true of any tribe or
no, but like Christianity has there's 18, 20 different like verticals that you can fight about within just Christianity.
If you're a Star Trek fan, if you go to a Star Trek convention, you could probably get a fight to break out between people who are like, no, Captain Kirk is the best. No, Picard is the best. No, Cisco is the best. No, Archer is the best. I mean,
but I would
argue
Star Trek is wholly irrelevant and Christianity is wholly relevant.
Okay, but my point is, within any group, you have to have a lot of common ground first before you even have anything to fight about.
That's true.
And it's true of anything. It's true of the United States. You have to agree that the Constitution is the law of the land before you can argue about what's constitutional and what isn't.
Okay.
Or to argue about a different philosophy of interpreting the Constitution. It's true of anything. It's just it's not anything Christians or you have a monopoly on. But let me read. What was I talking about? Dispensationalist versus covenant theology. There's that. I've never heard anybody explain why they're necessarily mutually exclusive. But the point I was making is that, like, when you read the Bible, it seems like God is sort of, and this relates back to the whole air conditioning, capitalism, modern, quality of life thing. It seems like every stage of the Bible, God is sort of addressing like a common human misperception. Like we often think, well, if we just had the right laws, if we just had the right rules for everybody to follow, all would be well. So he gives the law. They don't obey the law. They all, the very next thing is in the book of Judges, where it reads, in those days, everyone did what was right in their own eyes because there was no king in Israel. It was to explain the need for a king. They have the right laws. God was their king. They had the right laws. They blew them off because there was nobody there to enforce it. And then they wanted a king, but it was for the wrong reasons. But he gave them the king they wanted in the person of Saul, who was tall and handsome and a warrior, but they wanted someone to fight their battles for them. And that didn't hit the spot either. So he gave them David in his line. David was the ideal king. And his descendants, some of them were good, some were bad, but having the right line of kings in itself didn't do it. And eventually you get to the point where, okay, you need a new nature. That's the whole, that's the point all of this is going to. And that's why the Messiah came. That's so he could die in our place, cover our sins, and give us his nature. But as history goes on, we kind of have these other dispensations where, like, okay, well, what if you have the most perfect economic system there is? Can humans achieve utopia? And now we have it. We have, like, the average, a poor person today lives better than the average pharaoh or Roman emperor in terms of their leisure, the level of luxury and comfort and convenience in their life, the variety of their diet,
medical.
There has never been a period of greater material sustenance and comfort than right now in our country, this moment. But we still find things to be mad about. It's still like evil is still destroying our civilization because the problem is our nature. It's not material lack. It's not for lack of the right political system or the right laws or the right king. It's our nature. So
The- yeah, I agree with all of that. I saw an interesting quote today by from a Dennis F. Kinlaw, and admittedly, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know how he fits into any kind of Christianity at all. So he could be crazy. Who knows? But he's quoted as
Nice
saying
preamble.
this, right? So Satan disguises submission to himself under the rule of personal autonomy. He never asked us to become his servants. Never once did the serpent say to Eve, I want to be your master. The shift in commitment is never from Christ to evil. It is always from Christ to self. And instead of his will, self-interest now rules, and what I want reigns. And that is the essence of sin. So, you know, that's the big lie. Like
I
you
got
don't
quibbles with that, but
do you? So
I
you don't
do.
you don't but you're never asked like, hey, don't follow Christ, be evil. But you are like
I mean,
told like,
that's
hey, you don't have to follow Christ because what you
Surely
want
you won't
matters.
die.
I don't disagree with those observations as a general rule, but I don't think that gets to the essence of what sin is. But
I don't think he was trying to get the essence of sin.
I think he was.
I don't think that
he
was the point of that. Just because it ended that way, I don't think that was the point of the story. The point of the story was following Satan. And sin isn't necessarily following Satan.
And you don't know that you're
sin is
following Satan.
disobeying God.
You don't know you're following Satan.
Right.
You're just being autonomous.
Right.
You're following freedom.
It's almost some Kaiser Soze shit, right? Like he's hiding in plain sight. There is no dude with red horns and a tail saying, follow me.
Right.
There's just a whisper in your ear going,
don't worship
follow
me.
yourself.
Just
trust yourself.
I agree with the whole, like, he doesn't announce himself at the door and say,
Can I come in? I have a deal for you.
Or
sign on the dotted line.
But the essence of sin is not pointing you to yourself. It's disparaging your trust in God.
It's simply pointing you away from God is the point. Again, I don't think that that treatise wasn't meant to be the definition of sin.
Well,
if you take it at that, then I understand your quibble, but I don't think that's what the author meant.
All right. Well,
but then again, I don't know Kinlaw, so he might mean that.
Right? He's like, no, that's exactly what I meant.
It just struck me. That's something that struck me because I believe that
that's not they're quibbles. They're just
every
quibbles.
problem.
I don't want to make a whole thing out
that we have, and I think next week when we get into masculinity, I think the self is going to be center stage.
Yeah, maybe
on what masculinity is and what it isn't.
The funny thing is, Brian, I would think that thing that Dre just read, you dig it the most because to me that sounds like a treatise on Gnosticism. And knowing how much you rail against that, I would think you would dig what you just heard Dre read.
Well, do you want me to get into this?
No. I just wanted to throw that out there and frustrate you.
Matt, you ignorant.
Give you intellectual, religious quibble blue balls. You can't. You can't finish. You're just fucking stuck right there.
What's that?
I wasn't worked up enough for that.
Only because I
at your age, it happens, Brian. It happens.
Give me a couple of minutes, I'll get you there.
It's like you keep poking. And
philosophical
provoking.
Edging at its finest.
It's like
that was for you, Gunny. I'm gonna give you new catchphrases to take away all the time.
I feel like there's more to say about
there probably
all
is.
of these topics, but I don't know what else.
There surely is.
Yeah. Anyway,
my takeaway is, hey, look, if people are starting to come to Jesus, whether they're right or wrong, I think it's a good direction, and it's up to we have a message. Our platform isn't isn't preachy, even though sometimes it might feel like it. But we're just here having conversations that anybody might have, hopefully, in their living room or on their back porch or arguing with their brother, right? So um hopefully this something hits in you when you hear us say something, and if you like it, comment. If you don't like it,
Actually,
comment.
I'm going to throw out. So I mentioned who I had dinner. I supped with last night, right? And Juan. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Juan. If but he basically said he's been listening since he met us at the
Oh,
thing
interesting.
in
What?
general,
Hey,
right?
what's up, Juan?
And that's why I threw his name out earlier, because he's going to hear himself
I
or hear
remember
his
you,
name.
Juan.
But he made the comment that he really digs us because he likes how authentic we continue to keep our conversation, right? He was like, you guys don't try to be fake preachy. He's like, I've met you in person. I know who you are. I got to know you guys for the night. And then I hear you guys do your podcast, and you're the same people on the podcast as the three guys that I met at the hotel bar. Right. And that phrasing, even like the guys I met at the hotel bar,
Right.
and we're the same guys on the show. So
We
Drake,
are
just kind of
we,
reinforcing what you just were saying, Dre, is that
we are pretty
that's
solid dudes,
I'm a
All
big fan
right.
of us.
especially
Right.
you, Dre.
I love me some us,
I mean, if we
Me
don't, who
too.
is, right? Like,
right?
Yeah, we're kind of screwed if we don't.
you,
But
But I
my
appreciate that one. I appreciate you said that, and
yeah, thanks, brother.
yeah, and I just wanted to share it with the guys, so I didn't mean to put you on blast.
hey, we like you too, Juan.
And he makes some dope fajitas too. So,
Oh
Well,
shit.
I feel excluded.
I'm in.
and I turned him on to
I invite
I don't know.
myself over.
MJ, I don't know if MJ's been listening. I think he was stealth listening, but he brought over tequila when he came to visit on the 4th last year, and I found a bottle to take over to Juan. So I'm keeping the tradition alive with the Addictivo tequila. So shout out to Addictivo. If you guys want to sponsor the podcast, we'd certainly be open to it. Or
Yeah,
Patron,
we
or
don't we don't turn down money, but
any other
Tequila
tequila brand.
sponsoring a Jesus podcast. I think
Okay?
there's something about it. There's something. Hey,
We'll
is
be the
it? Let's.
first.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's
I,
get on that.
I got a quick point before you close out, Dre.
Yeah, sure.
So my point about the distinction between cultural Christianity and like genuine spiritual transformation. I have a blog article entitled "A Plan of Action for an American Renaissance," where I explain more comprehensively what that means, like why Christianity is dying in the West and why a cultural renaissance isn't necessarily the good news it sounds like. But anyway, the link will be in the description, hopefully.
Hell yeah.
So I want to put this out to any listeners who's still with us right now. So Brian has this blog, and he just kind of touched some wave tops on it. How would any of you like for him to go in depth on one of these topics, kind of just a Brian, without Matt and Dre interrupting him? So just kind of have his, on our channel, just have another show of Brian.
That's a
Of
scary
Brian talking.
thought, me just monologuing with no limits.
We'll I don't want to put words in Brian's mouth of what that might look like, so I'll let him kind of say what he might be proposing here.
Yeah, I've had a couple people, friends, it's not like a wide outcry for it. But close friends who are already, friendly to me have they're not that many, but they're very insistent that I should do my own podcast, my own YouTube channel. I've been thinking about it. I think there's a lot of people who take it upon themselves to be teachers who shouldn't, and they are flooding YouTube and the internet. And I'm reluctant to add to the noise, but I got an itch. I'd be lying if I said I didn't have an itch to do that. But if there's let me know your thoughts. If that's something you'd be interested in, let me know. If you think no, shut up. Just stick with Matt and Dre to keep you keep you in bounds, then, tell me that. If you do think I should do it, if you got an idea for, a topic to launch with, I'm open to hear about it. But anyway,
I mean, I would
know.
think, Brian, I would think, first of all, I think you should do it. And I think you should do it by restarting, by voicing all of your current blogs that you've written. I think that's how you should launch your channel.
And frankly, if I do it, I just want to be able to blame people who said yes,
told you to do it,
right?
Yeah. Told me to do it,
and for our dozens of loyalists, he's not dating Yoko Ono or anything. Like we're not breaking up the channel yet. So
yeah, this isn't about us splitting. This is about Brian adding an additional podcast to the world.
I'm thinking about what the Yoko Ono equivalent here would be.
I mean, we're just breaking up.
That's what he's trying to say. Not about you dying.
Right.
What?
Get over yourself. Crying out loud.
Are you talking to me about me getting over myself? Wait, what happened? What are we talking about?
Again, another time when Matt and I are in the same wavelength and you are off in another sports
being all
left field is what we.
No, I was thinking of who my Yoko Ono would be.
Oh,
and if that
would have one.
You don't have one. I'm just letting people know that there isn't a Yoko Ono. That there was no Jezebel here messing up our thing. That's all I'm saying. Like this is all of our. In fact, we brought it up to him first, and then he has revisited because.
Well, you have me reevaluating my relationships to see who Yoko Ono would be.
I see.
That was not the point.
That's not the point.
Yeah,
the point is there is no Yoko Ono. That's the point. Unless there is, Brian, and then
I don't think she's a threat.
Okay.
Not a threat to the show. That's good to know.
I don't think so.
I'm glad to hear that.
We'll talk about it.
Brian, you have anything else, man?
No, I'm good.
I've got two closing thoughts. One, in order, it's definitely Emma Stone, Kirsten Dunst, then Zendaya. That's it. I've spoken.
Fair.
Brian, I've got a thought I want you to think about for a future show.
You're backwards on what you just said.
So you have this weird thing you do, and I want to point it out, and I want you to think about how to turn this into a show for a future episode. You have some bipolar end of the world stuff going on because you make a lot of statements about the end of humanity, the end of the world, but you're really clear on eschatology about how the requirements for Christ to return for the apocalypse to actually happen. So which one is it? We can't have both. Either the world's going to end because of Jesus, or it's going to end because people suck. It can't be both ways.
I don't need a show for that. I can answer that right now.
No. I want it to be in a show.
No.
It's because you're dramatic. That's the answer. But
I'm not. I'm just
lobbing that out there as a.
I never said no filth, Lauren.
As a hand grenade for the listeners to ponder.
I feel like I'm being misrepresented though.
In fact, we'll see if the listeners agree with Matt or you.
All right. Well.
And you don't get to defend yourself yet. The listeners will wait.
That's the point. I want to build some tension that can linger for a while.
Just tie me down and invite people to punch me in the stomach.
You better flex.
Rocks.
Right?
I mean, all that martial arts training,
right?
You should really get kicked in the nards.
Yeah. Pain does not exist on this podcast, does it?
No, sensei.
That's good.
Dre, final thoughts?
No, I think I already hit my final thoughts. So, all right. Well, that was fun, and so I'll just leave with this. Brian, what should we do?
Wait, what?
You should probably stay curious, stay enlightened.
Right.
And
he was trying to punt it to you since you stole it last week.
I thought you were. Since
you intercepted it last week, I just thought maybe I'd give you a screen pass, and then you didn't follow any blockers. You got stuck behind the line of scrimmage. I don't know.
Stay enlightened. Stay curious. Do all the
now
YouTube
it's fourth
things.
and long.
Do the YouTube things. Do the social things. Click the buttons.
Do them all of them.
Do those things.
Like the posts. Click the things.
God bless.
We'll see you.
Oh yeah.